Hi there, grief growers. Really quickly before we jump into the show today, I wanted to let you know that my third book called Of Course I'm Here Right Now, 3 Actually Helpful Things to Say to Someone Grieving is now available for pre-order. It comes out in March of 2026, and honestly, I had every intention of waiting longer to make this announcement because most authors start talking about their books around the 6-month mark, which would have been September for me. But my publishing team let me know last night that Barnes & Noble is running a special promotion this week only to get 25% off the list price of the book. So you can pre-order in advance by going to Barnes & Noble's website and finding the book and typing in the code PREORDER25. That's all one word, PREORDER25, to get 25% off as many copies of my book as you would like until July 11th at midnight. And if you'd prefer to support your local bookstore, you can certainly pre-order as well through bookshop.org, which is offering free shipping on all of its books right now through July 11th at midnight, including mine. Both of these incredible bookstore deals are in direct competition with Amazon's infamous Prime Day. So if you are boycotting Amazon, divesting your money, pulling it away from billionaires, and want to save money supporting a queer grief author, yours truly, this is absolutely the best way to do it. Thank you so much for supporting my work. Whether you purchase the book and pre-order the book or not, or just support me by listening here, I will say there is so much more to come about this little teeny guidebook for what to say to support and comfort somebody after a devastating loss, and you will hear it all on the show. You can find the link to pre-order your copy from Barnes & Noble or Bookshop in the show notes. Now, onto the show. They shut you down or they say, just let it go, it makes it feel like you have a problem or you are a problem for holding on to your grief or for still carrying grief in the way that you do. And you are told to let go of the pain, to move on, to leave the past behind, as if grief is magically somehow this thing you can drop and walk away from like it never mattered. Hi there, grief growers. I am so honored to be here with you as always. If you have been growing alongside me for a while, welcome back. If you're new to me and my work, hello. My name is Shelby Forsythia. I am a grief coach, 2-time, soon to be 3-time author, and founder of Life After Loss Academy. I have had the joy of helping thousands of grieving people stop feeling lost, stuck, broken and alone inside their grief and start building lives that they truly love from the lives that loss forced them to live. This includes not only death-related losses, but also losses like divorce and breakup, major diagnosis, and basically any other loss that changes your life. Here on the show, we believe that grief is not something to get over. It is something that we grow with and alongside for the rest of our lives, and that when we stop treating grief less like a problem to be solved and more like an invitation to live more deeply, we create meaningful lives that are rich with the memories that we carry and the struggles that we faced and the preciousness, the hard-won preciousness of we know what it's like to be right here, right now. Today on the show, I want to get into one of the stickiest questions that I get from grieving people after a devastating loss, and it's about this letting go business. How do I let go of grief? How do I let go of the pain of loss without letting go of love? And I would love to introduce you to 2 lists that help you release the pain that you carry. Because this phrase, like, just let it go and let be, let go and let God, all of these things can feel really, really infuriating when you're grieving. It's like one of these grief phrases that is allegedly, I say that with like heavy raised eyebrows for those of you who are listening and not watching on YouTube, it's allegedly well-meaning, but it's actually a deeply dismissive phrase and ends up being really hurtful to the grievers who hear it. Because if you think about this, if you bring your pain or your suffering or your grief to somebody, if you lay it at their feet, and I talk about this in my new book, Of Course I'm Here Right Now, and they shut you down or they say, just let it go, it makes it feel like you have a problem or you are a problem for holding on to your grief or for still carrying grief in the way that you do, and you are told to let go of the pain, to move on, to leave the past behind, as if grief is magically somehow this thing you can drop and walk away from like it never mattered. So I want to dig into what it means to really let go. after a loss, and answer the question, is it even possible to let go without also letting go of your memories and your identity, and potentially, if you're grieving a death-related loss, the person who died? To me, the truth is, like a foundational truth is, letting go is not about forgetting. And it's not about pretending that you're over it, because remember, grief is not something to get over. And it is definitely not about leaving your loved one, again, if you're grieving a death, or your grief behind. Letting go, to me, in the work that I teach, and that so many other grief experts teach as well, is about releasing the pain that you carry bit by bit over time. It is about loosening your grip on the weight of what can no longer be true, what loss took away from you. And letting go is about making space for where you're going without erasing where you came from. It's about letting all of the everything come with you while also grieving the things that loss stole. So if you are asking this question of how do I let go, or how do I release the pain of life after loss, this is where two of my favorite lists come in, and I'll introduce them to you in a second. But first I want to talk about letting go versus releasing, and why the distinction between that language matters in grief. Because you might already have like your hackles up, you might be resistant to the phrase let it go, and I gotta tell you, you have a very good reason to feel that way. First off, it's vague. It's like this fog, let go. How? Where's the instruction manual for this? Who has a structure or a format or a manual for how to let go? Another thing I don't like about let go is it sounds final. Just let it go. Just leave it back there. And it is often said by people who don't understand what it means to live life alongside grief. It is often said by people who think it's possible to leave grief in the past like a toy that you've outgrown, or a pair of pants that no longer fit. And we have so much more of an emotional, physical, spiritual, mental connection to the things we are trying to, quote, let go of, than a pair of pants that no longer fit. So if you are feeling a pressure to leave grief back there, you might consider shifting the order, the missive, to let it go, into, reframe, an invitation to release what you can. And I want to read you an excerpt from my guidebook, Your Grief Your Way, which is my second book. I'm talking about my books a lot on the show today. Didn't really mean to do that, but here we are. And the March 2nd entry, this is on page 35 if you have the English version of the book. It's also in Portuguese. It says, well-meaning friends and family will tell you to just let it go, but how can you? It seems impossible to just let go of the pain, the heartache, or the memories of your loved one. So instead of using let it go, try using release. Release comes from the Latin word relaxare, which means to loosen, to free from confinement and obligation. And that can feel much clearer than just let it go. Ask yourself what you would like to loosen and free from confinement and obligation. Maybe you want to release the thoughts of your loved one's final moments. Perhaps you want to release the obligation to chair your neighborhood's block party this year. When you feel like you're holding on too tight, finish this sentence. Right now, I would like to release blank. Insert thing to be released here. And again, this is from the March 2nd entry of Your Grief Your Way. And this is kind of a fun fact that's not related to anything, but this was my editor's favorite passage in the book. She's a word nerd like me, and so she was really excited to learn kind of the Latin etymological origins of the word release and how release can be a better reframe than let it go in life after loss. And this type of releasing, this flavor of releasing, is exactly what we do inside Life After Loss Academy. For me and the students that I teach, letting go after a loss is not about erasing grief, like scrubbing it from your file of your life. It is about choosing again and again what you feel ready enough to loosen your grip on, or something that loss has clearly taken away from you, and then building some sort of ritual or memorial around that. It does not look like releasing all of grief, and certainly not all at once. It is one thing at a time, and generally one thing that you choose for yourself. So now's the part where I want to introduce you to the two lists that I use to help grieving people inside Life After Loss Academy. So this is kind of continuing our sneak peek that we're doing throughout the summer of the releasing lists that I share with students inside the private course and community. Okay, the first list is called the identity list, and this is all about letting go of the person that you used to be, because regardless of the type of loss that you face, death, divorce, diagnosis, the 3 Ds, or something else, Grief goes way beyond mourning the person or the thing that you lost. It also includes grieving identities and roles and parts of yourself. These are often roles that loss stole or took away or invalidated. So, for instance, you might grieve your role as a caregiver after the person you were caring for dies. You might also grieve your status as a healthy or an able-bodied person after a life-changing diagnosis. There are other lesser acknowledged roles or identities, things that are emotional or logistical or spiritual or functional. So, for example, you might grieve being perceived as the strong one in your family, or the planner or the mom in your friend group, or the productive employee at your job. And even more abstract identities that I've seen tons and tons of grieving people mourn, as I've worked with them in more than 8 years as a grief coach, is things like safe, innocent, protected, and known by somebody else. These are identities that we can hold very deeply at our core. Creative, that's an identity that I've seen so many grieving people grieve. I'll tell you, one of the weird identities that I grieved after my mom's death in 2013 was morning person. The exhaustion of grief made me want to sleep all the time, and that included, to my surprise and distress, sleeping in. And while this might not feel like a big deal to a lot of people, it really messed with my sense of identity, because after all, I had gotten up with the sun, whether I liked it or not, for 21 straight years of my life. And I would look in the mirror and think, who is this stranger that can sleep until noon? I did not recognize her, yet here she was taking up space in my body, and that totally freaked me out. Another one for you. When my best friend Tammy died in 2022, I grieved my identity as someone training for the Chicago Marathon. She and I were training together. She was doing Detroit, and I was going to do Chicago, and I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, so kind of a double whammy, her death, chronic illness, at the same time that she died. And it was strongly recommended that I discontinue any intensive exercise immediately. So the last long run that I took, it was like a 10-miler or a 16-miler, was one that I took with Tammy. Both of those things for me have died, and I have not run another long run since. So like many grievers, I wonder if this is resonating with you wherever you are in your grief, wherever you are in the world. I was not only grieving my person who died, or the thing that I lost, I was also grieving the person I used to be, and all of these things were happening all together at the same time. So the identity list, this first one that I'm offering to you, helps you name who you no longer are, so you can begin to release the pressure to keep performing those roles, to try and fit yourself back into the box of who you used to be. It also helps you wrap language around some part of you that may be missing, but maybe you haven't put words to yet, and putting words to how you as an individual have changed because of your loss is such a powerful exercise. So if you're in a place where you can write things down, I invite you to try this. If you're driving or walking somewhere and need to be aware of your surroundings, you can save this and come back later. But try this. Write down all of the roles or titles or ways of being that are no longer available to you because of your loss. These are just a few examples to get you started. You might write down spouse or partner of a living person. You might write down parent of a living child. You might write down married person, caregiver, the productive employee, the social butterfly, the quick thinker, morning person, marathon runner, safe, innocent, protected, creative, known. What are identities in yourself, roles that you play, ways of being that you moved around in the world with, that are no longer true, that are rendered false because of loss? And once you've got this list, it might be quite long, so I encourage you to maybe set a timer, and so there's a bit of a limit on how long you can ponder on this. Once you've made this list, ask yourself, how might I ritualize and release one of these identities, or say goodbye to this version of me, in a way that feels meaningful? So for instance, I might grieve my identity as a marathon runner by leaving a special rock or a little totem or a flower at one of mine and Tammy's favorite running destinations. I might box up and say goodbye to, out loud or in my head, to my running gear, donating it to somebody who can really use it. I might light a candle and write a letter to my body, reliving mine and my body's running memories together and sending it care and then good health as it is right now. These are 3 different ways to grieve and release and ritualize one single identity that I'm mourning. And you can do this for all of the identities on your list. This will take some time. This is not something that will happen overnight, but it's something where you can fit the ritual or routine for how you specifically would like to release this. I'm not going to tell you what your routine should be because I don't think I'm the person to do that. I think you know your loss, you know your grief, you know what would feel good to your soul. You decide how you would like to release your identity. And there are honestly countless ways to do it and tons of ideas, both in real life, in the media, online. You can find so many different rituals for saying goodbye to something that is no longer possible or no longer true because of loss. And I will say, if your identity list, the thing you have made, is overwhelming to you, that's okay. It is like very normal to see, to witness the enormity of what can no longer be about you, the place where you live, and get overwhelmed. So if you find yourself in that headspace, please just take a break and put this list away for a while. Just making the list in the first place is a really powerful first step, and you can decide which identity you would like to release first and the ritual that you would like to pair with that later. It does not all have to be done today. And of course, I will always issue you this invitation as well. If you want help inventing releasing rituals, if you're like, I'm not very creative, or I want some more ideas from other grievers, or I want to brainstorm with you, Shelby, especially about abstract things like how do I release and grieve safety? How do I release and grieve being a morning person, for instance? You can always join us anytime in Life After Loss Academy. This is something we do in Module 2 of the course, and I devote, I think, about 4 or 5 lessons to releasing based on these 2 lists. And speaking of 2 lists, let's get to the second one. This one is called the Hopes, Dreams, and Expectations list, where you let go of what can no longer be. Because when it comes to grieving after a loss, we know to mourn the person or thing that is missing. The person who died, the relationship we lost, our former body. We also know we can mourn the irreversible event that happened. I'm thinking natural disasters, terrorist attacks, wars, things of that nature. But we are rarely given space and permission and validation and especially instruction. How do I do this? When it comes to grieving the future we can no longer have. These are the hopes, dreams, and expectations you thought would happen, you expected to happen, you wanted to happen, but that are now impossible because of loss. For many of my clients and students, this includes vacations that will never be taken, retirement that will never be shared, children or grandchildren that will never be raised, and milestones that will never, ever be celebrated together, at least here on Earth. These invisible losses of future hopes and plans are just as real and just as devastating as the loss itself. I'm going to say that one more time because I really want you to hear it. These invisible losses of future hopes and plans, even if they never materialized, are just as real and just as devastating as the main loss itself. And naming them can feel, to put it mildly, like a big, huge bummer. The bummer icing on the bummer cake, so to speak. Longtime followers of my work will know that one of the biggest hopes and dreams that I grieved after my mom's death is the hope of reconciliation. She and I were in the middle of a fight about my sexuality when she died. My identity clashed with her religious beliefs, and we never came to an understanding while she was still here on Earth. Another vivid example I have of grieving a future expectation is when the person I was engaged to for a time suddenly ended our relationship. And overnight, I went from engaged to single, and my plans for moving to be together with them crashed and burned. I had to scramble to find a job and talk my landlord into letting me re-sign my lease when I had agreed to move out months earlier. I was mourning not only the relationship that was supposed to be, but the future life and the plans and everything we were supposed to do and be for each other together. And I had to do the work of grieving that alone. So many grieving people are carrying around emotions like disappointment and heartache and hopelessness, really, honestly, very heavy things. And it can be comforting, in a weird way, to recognize that oftentimes these emotions, disappointment, heartache, hopelessness, are tied to unnamed dreams and expectations that loss took away. So the hopes, dreams, and expectations list is where you can name what can no longer happen so that you can start beginning to, slowly, find meaning in what still can happen, what is now possible for you in your life after loss. So try this. Here's your invitation to actually do this exercise. Again, if you're driving or walking and need to be aware of where you are, save this podcast, come back to it later. But if you're in a place where you can write this down, write down the dreams you had for the future. big or small, that are no longer possible. These things may include growing old together, watching your child graduate, becoming a grandparent, adopting a pet together, retiring or traveling, reconciling with someone who's now gone, which is one that I carry, seeing someone heal. This could be emotionally or from an addiction or something similar. You could also be grieving the expectation that you would never experience this kind of loss, or the world would never look like this, or that life would not turn out this way. That is a grief of a hope, a dream, or an expectation that is more than valid to grieve. And after you've got this list together, again, it might help to set a timer for like 5 to 10 minutes or so. Ask yourself, how might I ritualize and release these hopes, dreams, and expectations in a way that feels meaningful to me? One of my very favorite examples of this, especially releasing after a breakup of a relationship, is one I learned from my best friend Tammy when we were in college together. One of our mutual friends got dumped by a guy we all thought was mean to her, so none of us liked him. we were kind of like, thank God, but she was still devastated. A big group of women from the volunteer organization we were in went to our local thrift store near our college campus and bought a bunch of cheap ceramic plates. They were like $1 a plate. And they used Sharpie markers to write her relationship's worst qualities on the plates, like no communication, or always came home late, or cheated on you, or whatever the case may be. And then this huge horde of women, this group of women, drove to a nearby mountain and tossed these plates off the side of the mountain, of course, in a way where they would not land on anyone. While I cannot speak to the environmental friendliness of this ritual, I actually know nothing about what happens to ceramic in nature. I can tell you that everyone came back feeling like they had released something, that some sort of burden, emotional, mental, spiritual, psychic, physical, had been lifted. Other examples of releasing rituals for a future that can no longer be, this kind of vague, abstract thing, but something that's important and heavy and significant all the same, could include things like writing on wish paper and safely setting it on fire, or dissolving it in water, releasing butterflies or lanterns, planting seeds and watching them grow, writing a song, or making a piece of art, or relocating physical objects such as an ex's dusty couch or a wedding dress that you will never wear for whatever reason, somewhere new or different. One Life After Loss Academy student I will never forget made her list of future hopes and expectations that can no longer be, and memorialized each one with a leaf that she released down the river behind her house. She was grieving her daughter, and as she watched the leaves float away, she kind of had a little blessing or a little meditation over each one as she watched them float away and out of her view. So again, as you can see, there are truly limitless ways to ritualize and release plans and dreams that loss rendered impossible. And again, I will say, if your hopes and expectations list is overwhelming to you and your nervous system, it is okay. Recognizing and absorbing the full picture of what you have lost, what can no longer be, can be incredibly painful. So pause and set down your list for a bit. Validate, even if just to yourself, that making the list in the first place is a powerful step in the direction that you want to go. And you can decide on your unique releasing rituals, or even what you'd like to release first, at another time. And of course, if you want help naming what you're releasing or creating rituals to let go, join us inside Life After Loss Academy. Every single week we meet together and talk about what we're struggling with or what we're working through at the moment. And if grieving these more abstract things or these identities or these hopes and expectations is coming up for you, I would love to help guide you through it even more deeply than just the list making that we're doing right here, right now. Before we go, I want to tell you why these two lists matter, because I want you to notice, if you didn't already, that neither of the lists made any mention of letting go of love. And this is a huge fear that grieving people have, is that if I let go, then I am losing everything. There's kind of this extremist thinking, which is very fair after a loss, because if my person died, a very extreme event, then any sort of healing or action I take in the aftermath of that will probably feel or be extreme as well. If I let go, then I let go everything. That's not true. Each list, the identity list and the hopes, dreams, and expectations list, asks you to name, invites you to name specifically what it is you are releasing. And I want to be very crystal clear here. I might even repeat this again. If there is love in the relationship, object, season, or transition you are grieving, you get to keep it. If there is love in the relationship, object, season, or transition you are grieving, I'm tearing up here. You get to keep it. This is the gift of shifting from thinking that you have to let go to recognizing that you have the power to release. And this just gets me right in the heart every time, because my mission as a grief coach is not to pull your grief out of you and tie it to a post somewhere back there so that you can walk on free and unburdened into a painless future. That is not an authentic way to live and be human. And it totally negates everything that you have been through that has gotten you to this point in your life. My goal in inviting you to make these two lists, the identity list and the hopes, dreams, and expectations list, is to help you identify exactly what you've lost so that you know what you need to grieve and release, but also so that you know what still gets to come with you as you move forward. You may be releasing a hell of a lot, but you are not releasing everything. There is so much from your life before that still gets to come with you, and this is the life-changing shit that we talk about in Life After Loss Academy and so much of the rest of the work that I do, because I do not want to take a cosmic eraser to your life. That is brutal, and that forces you to tear more from yourself than necessary when loss has already taken so much. When you write down the things that you've lost, visible or invisible, you start to process them. You start to soften around them and sort of shake them loose from your heavy arms that are doing so much work carrying grief already. You start to let go of identities and futures that have very honestly died. They are no longer possible for you. In your own metaphorical way, you are saying goodbye to them and burying them, while also continuing to carry as much of the love and memories and care as you want. And those things, dear grief growers, are not heavy. These lists don't erase the pain. They just give your pain clarity, and they give your pain somewhere to go. And that is how releasing, or heavy air quotes, letting go of grief works. This is not, once again, this is not a one and done exercise. It is not a switch you flip and suddenly you have released. Ta-da, you're done. This is a lifelong practice of checking in with yourself and asking, what am I still carrying that loss made untrue? What would like to be loosened or set down or freed from confinement? What am I holding on to that actually wants to rest? I want to remind you again that you have the power to name it and decide how you would uniquely like to ritualize and release it. When you do this, you practice, you write and you rewrite. I've had grief growers in Life After Loss Academy pin their list up somewhere throughout the week or over the course of a month and just keep adding to it, because you're not going to recognize or know all the identities or all the futures that you're grieving all at once. Even I, 11 years out from my loss, cannot list in their entirety either one of those lists. I need to sit with it for a while. I need to let things float up to my consciousness and appears. When you do this, you experiment with different rituals to see what feels best to you. Some people like to create things like art or music or practices for themselves. Some people like to destroy things like burning paper, throwing plates off a mountain. You sleep on it. You ask for help if you believe this to be true for you, from ancestors and guides and mentors, anybody else in your life you look up to about grief and loss. You release one way in one season and a totally different way in another season. I'll tell you, I'm releasing big time differently than I did, 3 years out from my mom's loss. Now that I'm going on 12, it looks very, very different. The work of releasing is done again and again whenever your heart tells you it's time to look at this again. In Life After Loss Academy, we do not avoid the work of releasing or letting go. We embrace it. We're looking right at it, gently, and also with ongoing support. And inside Module 2, which is called explicitly Release, in the grief model, first we ground, which we talked about last week, and then we release. I walk you step by step through how to complete both of these lists with care and clarity and community surrounding you. You will learn how to ritualize the act of release, how to express your grief safely. I'll give you a ton of different ideas as like jumping off points. And you will also learn how to gently soften into a future that includes your losses, but is no longer defined by what and which versions of yourself they took from you. So if you are ready to feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more grounded, and a lot more empowered as you release grief's heaviest and hardest emotions, this is your invitation to join us. You can become a member of Life After Loss Academy whenever it resonates with you. And if you're listening to this before August 31st, 2025, you can use code GriefGrower to get your first month free. I am so glad to have been with you today in this space talking about the sacred and heavy and hard and heart work of releasing in life after loss. It is not letting go. It is relaxare, loosening your grip on, freeing from obligation. And what I want you to take away from this more than anything else is that you, even though loss took a lot away from you, have the power and control to say what you are grieving, when you are grieving it, when it comes to making both of these lists. You had no control over what loss took from you, but how you'd like to grieve it, how you'd like to release it, the ritual that speaks most to your heart. These are things you do have power and autonomy and control and blessing over in life after loss. And that is not nothing. That's all for this episode of Grief Grower. Thank you so very much for joining me today. If you'd like to get support from me for your unique loss experience, join us in Life After Loss Academy, my online course and community. As a student, I'll walk you through my 5-step grief framework for rebuilding after loss, and you can get live coaching from me every single week to answer your questions. Replays are always available if you can't attend live. It's just $33 a month to join, $22 a month if you're a marginalized or financially stressed griever, and you can cancel at any time. Now through August 31st, you can try 1 month of Life After Loss Academy absolutely free with the code GriefGrower. You can find a link to do that in the show notes. If this podcast felt validating, comforting, educational, or otherwise helpful to you, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And be sure to share Grief Grower with a friend, because you never know what someone you love is going through. Grief Grower is hosted by yours truly, Shelby Forsythia, with music by Addie Goldstein. Until next time, I see you. I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world. And I love you. Because even through grief, we are growing.